Hello, I'm Soikan, welcome back to our second channel video, and this is everyone's favourite series where we talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today I wanted to do just another stupid geography video where we talk about place names and point out how silly they are just by looking at a map, because did you know when you look at a map of the world, there's so much information available to you here just by looking at the names of places, and a great example of that is to look at the United States of America. Did you know the US has 50 states? I think we all know that, but did you know that despite the fact that there have been 44 separate people who have been president of the United States, and despite the fact that there have been only 8 queens of the UK, despite the UK being several times older than the US, one US state is named after a president, Washington of course, whereas 2 United States states are named after one of the mainly 3 notable queens of the UK. Virginia is named after the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth I, and so of course is West Virginia by extension of that. But in case you think that's kind of a cop-out, Maryland was actually named after a queen consort of King Charles's wife, because technically speaking there's lots of queens that are just the wives of kings, they're queen consorts I believe is the term, but just in case you think that's a cop-out, then did you know, Georgia is named after King George as well? Well, that's also kind of fun. And just for extra fun here, did you know Louisiana, also named after a French king, King Louis the 14th? They've got a lot of King Louises, and therefore by the same, and by the same logic, because the Louisiana Purchase was actually significantly bigger at first. It was a huge part of the US, the largest single territorial acquisition. But if you look at, cities and even states up here, for instance, like St. Louis, named after another King Louis, an entirely different one, like King Louis the Ninth or something. But did you know lots of places in the United States are named after kings and queens more than are named after presidents, which is kind of funny given the nature of the United States. But it gets more interesting when we talk about other places, because if we just again take one of the 8 queens of the UK, Queen Victoria, perhaps the most notable, all around the world you can find so many places named after her. And one of these kind of came from just a random offhanded comment on a recent video, because someone was still upset that Queensland separated from New South Wales. As you can see, Queensland bigger than New South Wales, even though more people live in New South Wales. They were still bitter about it, despite the fact that it was 150 years ago, and I looked into it, because I didn't know they split, and I wondered, like, what the circumstances were, and I learned that Queensland, maybe this should have been obvious, was actually named after Queen Victoria. And I thought that was kind of odd, because it means that 2 of the main 6 provinces of Australia, 2 of the main 6 states of Australia are named after Queen Victoria. There's Queensland here, of course, but there's literally a state called Victoria as well, and I find that kind of funny that New South Wales is pretty surrounded by Queen Victoria right here, but it is very much a real fact. And it's interesting because, it's not just 2 places in, Australia that are named after Victoria, as well as many, small towns and universities in Australia. There's also places like, hey, if you go over to New Zealand over here, did you know one of the big towns, these days, Queensland, is also, it's over, Queenstown I think it is, over here, is actually named after Queen Victoria as well. Most things that are actually just named generically Queen are named after Victoria, but in case you don't think that's enough, you're like, well, that's kind of interesting, I guess. But did you know directly British Columbia, the most western, main province in Canada, the capital of British Columbia is actually Victoria on Vancouver Island. This right here is the capital of British Columbia. I don't know why they decided to put their capital so close to the US border, like it's surrounded on all sides, but whatever, I guess that's a political decision for a region of Canada. But yeah, lots of things are named after just Queen Victoria, and let's talk about them in today's video, because we can do this, for a surprising amount of time, because did you know, for instance, Malta, Malta's a small European country, it has the main island of Malta, and obviously its capital is sort of Valletta. It's an interesting situation of what is the capital of Malta. But if we look at Gozo, the second island, or the second biggest island, you can see how the capital of that island, guess what it's called? It's Victoria. It's, actually, by the way, Victoria is meant to be a very scenic place. If you ever want to go to Malta and you want to see some interesting stuff, because it's such a British, as far as like European countries go, it's like the most British, non-British place besides maybe Ireland. I'd argue even more British than Ireland is, because they obviously want to distance themselves from the UK, whereas this place is just like, you know what? Telephone boxes? Yeah, sure. Exactly the same traffic lights? Why not? Even these same pedestrian crossings with the cute little bubbles on the head. I liked it a lot. It's the UK, but it's Mediterranean. But we're not talking about places of the UK that Mediterranean, because we've got so many other places named Victoria to go through. So, for instance, did you know that the 3rd largest lake in the world, the largest lake in Africa, guess what it's named? Named after the Queen again. This is actually, again, a huge lake. It spreads across 3 separate countries. Their largest lake for each of them individually, therefore, is named after Queen Victoria. Kind of fun, right? You might make an imperialism comment here, but actually, surprisingly few places in Africa are named after Queen Victoria. A few of them have changed. So, for instance, Cameroon's capital city, one of their large cities, was named after Queen Victoria, but they changed it, which, you know, how sad am I, right? But no, more seriously, we can look at places that are still named Victoria. If we look at the most successful African country, the Seychelles. The Seychelles is a very tricky country to find on the maps. I'll be honest, I lose it every now and then, but Seychelles is a small island country off the coast of Africa, one of the few here. But yeah, Seychelles, you know what their capital's called? Are you willing to take a guess? You want to take a guess? Guess what? It's Victoria as well as a place called Bella Ombre. That's kind of interesting. And yeah, there's so many places named Victoria, you know, directly after the Queen of... if we look at Northern Ireland, there's a lot of places like Queen Victoria Hospital is a major stop on a train station. There's so many things named after Victoria intentionally. And my favorite thing is the fact that, did you know, there's lots of places that are named after Victoria, not because they're named after the Queen, because obviously she was the Queen during the large to expansive phase. We could talk about, you know, how that happens, colonialism all day. But that's not as fun as saying, did you know, a lot of places are named deliberately after Queen Victoria. In fact, we've got ourselves a lovely map right here, because of course there's a map. But did you know, as well as this, there's a lot of places, you know, non-deliberately named after Queen Victoria as well. And you might be thinking, like, how does that work? Well, there's a lot of places that are named Victoria, such as Ciudad Victoria. This is the capital of the state of... I don't want to say it because people will be like, your Spanish pronunciation's bad. Well, guess what? No Spanish pronunciation. This word right here, you know, which I can perfectly pronounce but choose not to, you know, so Ciudad Victoria, the city of Victoria, is actually the capital of this region of Mexico, which is a fun fact, right? But it's not actually named after Victoria. Victoria did not colonize this herself, or she didn't colonize anything herself, and she was not leader of the country. Victoria just happens to be victory in Spanish, and fun fact, therefore, because a lot of places in South America have, like, victory celebrations, there's so many places in South America that are named after Victoria indirectly. So you know what? We can colonize places we didn't even colonize, is my reaction to that one. But yeah, lots of places are called Victoria. It's a fun thing. In fact, you know, this map right here, the fact that there's a map of places called Victoria around the world, it's super interesting to me because you can also read about places that were formerly named after Victoria and now aren't. I'd say India is the largest single country for doing that. India, of course, as you can imagine, wants to remove the colonial ties in a lot of ways. In fact, the biggest cities in India have been renamed since British times, which is why Mumbai... I actually forget its previous name. I think it's like Bombay from before, or maybe that's New Delhi. But a lot of Indian cities have been renamed, and as a result, a lot of big universities previously named after Victoria now no longer a thing. You can read about it if you want on, guess what? There's a dedicated Wikipedia article, list of places named after Queen Victoria, and this list is incomplete. You can help by expanding it, which you know, it's kind of dumb, but whatever. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of places named after Queen Victoria, even in Bangladesh, fun fact, even in Barbados, Belize, Cameroon, Canada, all the provinces, by the way, in Hong Kong as well, which we didn't mention too much because, you know, Hong Kong's a thing. Guess what? We've got places in Jamaica. It's called Kingston, the capital, but they've got Victoria Avenue there anyway. Lots of places all around the world. We could spend all day talking about it, but instead, how about I mention that as well as places you can find on this map, did you know, fun fact right here, that the London Underground, which is of course a place I care about fondly, we even make videos about it here on this channel, did you know that the London Underground has more than one line named after a queen? There's only Victoria Line, you know, one of the 11 lines is named Victoria, but as well as the Victoria Line, we also have, you know, looking over here, what's this? The Jubilee Line, named because the Queen Elizabeth, the current monarch, had her Jubilee. And guess what? As well as that, the newest line, which isn't really an underground line, but this is like transport nerd stuff. So just to be simple, it is a line of the Transport for London system. Did you know it's called the Elizabeth Line too? So despite having 12 lines by this, you know, system of, you know, London Underground stuff or London transport lines that have a name directly to them, 3 of them are named after British queens. We like our queens a lot. Again, despite the fact that we've only really had 3 significant queens, we name a lot of things after them, and that is something I find interesting. Also, actually, you know what? You might be thinking, you know, 3 lines in the London Underground, that's... let's not go back to this, but 3 lines in the London Underground, you know, that's actually surprisingly few. You know, this doesn't stack up with the rest of the video, because so many places in the UK are named after Queen Victoria. I mean, again, you can just look at the map and be like, the UK's just red. It's just a solid red map because of how many places in the United Kingdom are named after, you know, Queen Victoria. It's just a ludicrous list that, like, wouldn't even be fun to go through. Lots of things at Victoria Road. Who would have figured that so many things are named after it? But if we, you know, something I find more interesting is the fact that it's not just the London Underground and not just the UK things that are named after Queen Victoria. Somehow, I'd love to actually dive into the reasons why. One of the lines on the Athens metro is named after Victoria as well. it looks like right here, it's some Greek, Cyrillic, not Cyrillic, I don't know why I forget the name of the Greek script, but it's the Greek script. It's the the script that they use over in Greece. And yeah, this is Victoria Station if you translate it into Latin. And I find that wacky that did you know not only do we name our own stuff after Queen Victoria, but places in like this are also named after Victoria. I love that. Maybe you do too. Maybe you found this video interesting. Maybe you thought it was stupid. And you know what? That's the beautiful thing about videos on the internet. You can have those opinions, and you can like them too. But all I know is that... Also, wait, what's that? Oh, I thought it was named Queen something. But all I know is if you type in the word Victoria into Google, it really has no idea where you're looking for. Like, hey, I'm looking for Victoria. Which Victoria are you looking for? You're looking for the Queen Victoria Memorial in Kolkata? Are you looking for Victoria Seychelles Airport in the Seychelles? Like, there's a lot of places you could be looking for, and I think that's beautiful. So just remember, if you live in a Victoria, or you live near a Victoria, or you live next to a Victoria, or a thing named after her, then statistically you could be anywhere in the world. So that's a good way to protect your identity, I reckon. Anyway, no, for serious, I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought it was kind of dumb. But yeah, lots of things in the US are named after kings and queens, despite the propensity for hating them. And I find that lovely. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. All I know is I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.